All right. A special note here is going to be 5 alive. So let's say we have a lot of competitors. We have 15 competitors in our example here. And we've reached a height where all 15 competitors are jumping. So at that point in time, we have to engage in a 5 alive scenario. And a 5 alive scenario occurs when there's greater than 9 competitors that are jumping at a particular height. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there's greater than 9 competitors in the entire event. As you can see, we have 15. But in our first two heights at 1.30 meters and 1.35 meters, we only had 5 competitors in at 1.30 and 7 competitors in at 1.35. So those two would just be conducted going in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever, just going in the standard order. But now we're at 1.40 meters, and now we have all 15 competitors who are jumping at 1.40 meters. So in this scenario, we have to conduct a 5 alive setup. And what the 5 alive setup allows is it allows the jumpers to stay fresher. So that way, the first jumper in the competition, for example, let's say jumper A, let's say they miss on their first attempt. They don't have to go through all 14 remaining jumpers in the competition before their second attempt starts. Who knows how long that scenario might take place, right? That might be 10 minutes, that might be 15 minutes, that might be 7 minutes, that might be too much time where that jumper A starts to get cold. So the 5 alive scenario allows for there to only be 4 jumpers in between each attempt, if you will, of the next jumper. So it keeps them fresher, it keeps them ready to go, and it speeds up the competition as a whole. So how do we do 5 alive? First off, we know that at 1.40 meters, we see that we have 15 competitors, and so we know that we're going to begin a 5 alive scenario. So we don't actually start numbering on the 5 alive until the first jumper misses. So let's say for our example here, jumper A made it on their first attempt. Oops. Let's say jumper B also made it on their first attempt, followed by jumper C. Let's say jumper D is the first jumper who misses on their first attempt. So now at this point in time, we begin the 5 alive scenario. So what you would do here is you put a little number in the corner and you number it 1 through 5. So let's put a 1 here, and we'll go down to the next jumper, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So these are the next 5 jumpers that are up in our order. Let me zoom in on that a little bit so you can see it just a little bit better. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we started numbering at jumper D, who missed on his first attempt when he missed on his first attempt. We did not number prior to that. You can certainly number prior to that, but you're going to be doing a lot of erasing. So just wait until that first jumper misses and then begin your numbering. So let's say jumper E also misses on his first attempt. And let's say jumper F makes it on his first attempt. Okay, so at this point in time, jumper F was our third jumper. That number gets removed from jumper F, and it goes down to the next jumper in line, which would be jumper I. And that jumper now gets the 3. They become the third jumper. So if we were to call out this scenario here, right? We had jumper F who was up, jumper G was on deck, and jumper H was on hold. Now, jumper F made it, so we had to move that jumper's number down to our jumper I. So the next effort is going to start with jumper G, right? So the way that we would call it is jumper G, you are up, jumper H on deck, jumper D on hold, right? Because we're here at 5 was jumper H. So now after we have 5, we go back up to jumper number 1, which in this scenario is jumper D, okay? So let's say jumper G makes it, or we'll do misses. We'll say they miss on their first attempt. And jumper H also misses on his first attempt. So again, like I said before, we're back up at jumper D, and jumper D, it's their second attempt. So the way that we would call it is we would say, jumper D, you are up, second attempt. Jumper E on deck, jumper I, because remember they're third, jumper I on hold, okay? So let's say jumper D, they make it on their second attempt. Now, once again, we would eliminate their number and put it down here to jumper J, okay? So now we have jumper E, you are up, second attempt. Jumper I on deck, jumper G on hold. So this numbering scenario in the 5 alive supersedes our regular numbering scenario, which is over here. That's the most important thing that you have to understand with the 5 alive. And also making sure that you have a good marking system so that you can keep track of the scenario and the order of the jumpers. You don't want to mix that up. Okay, so where are we at? Jumper E is doing his second attempt. Let's say jumper E makes it on his second attempt. So we remove the 2 from jumper E and we put it down here for jumper K. So now we just did jumper E, which was number 2. So now we're at jumper 3, right? Which is jumper I. So jumper I, you are up, first attempt. Jumper G on deck, jumper H on hold. So let's say jumper I, he makes it on his first attempt. We can again remove the 3. And the 3 goes down here to jumper L. Why do I have a box around this? Because once we have 8 or less competitors in the competition, we eliminate 5 alive and we just continue with a straight order, okay? Once we have 8 or less competitors in the competition, we eliminate the 5 alive and we continue with the straight order. So I put the box here above the last 3 competitors so that I know once I enter a number into this box from my 5 alive system, now I'm just going to call all of the remaining jumpers up in order. And as you can see, we've already labeled jumper M, N, and O as jumpers 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so the way that this would look is we had just finished with jumper I, who made it on their first attempt. They were our third jumper. We moved that box down to jumper L. So we continue on. Jumper G, you are up, second attempt. Jumper H on deck, jumper J on hold. Okay, so let's say jumper G, that they make it. We can eliminate the 4. And we don't have a 4 to put in. We could technically put the 4 in here, but we already know that we're at 6, 7, and 8, and we're just going in the straight order, okay? So let's say here, jumper H, who is up now, because we did the 4, now we're at 5. So jumper H, you are up, second attempt. Jumper J on deck, jumper K on hold. So let's say jumper H misses. Let's say jumper H misses. We could technically eliminate this number because we know that we're going back through our order. I like to leave the number there myself just for the purposes of understanding that that's where my 5 alive was. And I know that when I get down here to jumper O, that my next jumper is going to be back up here at jumper H. I don't have to look all the way through my roster to see, okay, where was my last X or whatever the case may be. Okay, so jumper H, they missed it on their first attempt. So now, or their second attempt, excuse me. So now we have jumper J, you are up, first attempt, jumper K on deck, jumper L on hold. So now it's just a regular high jump scenario. Let's say that they make it on their first attempt and they make it on their first attempt and jumper L makes it on his first attempt, okay? So now we have jumper M, you are up, jumper N on deck, jumper O on hold. Let's say jumper M misses it. Jumper N, you are up, jumper O on deck, jumper H on hold, okay? Because again, once we complete our list, we go back up to whoever, the next person is that needs to have an attempt. So let's say jumper N makes it. So we go again, jumper O, you are up, jumper H on deck, jumper M on hold. So let's say jumper O makes it. Now, we only have 2 jumpers left that have an attempts or multiple attempts at this particular height. We have jumper H, who has 1 attempt remaining, and we have jumper M, who has 2 attempts remaining. So, because everyone else has made it, we go back up here to jumper H, and we would say, jumper H, you are up, 3rd and final attempt, jumper M on deck. So let's say jumper H comes in and they make it. Well, let's say they miss, just for the purpose of something else I'll show you in a sec. Let's say they miss. Okay, now we're at jumper M, so we say jumper M, you are up, 2nd attempt. So that way they know that, oh, I'm not out of the competition, I still have 2 more attempts or whatever, because it got a little weird doing the 5 alive. So let's say jumper M, that they make it on their 2nd attempt. So now we can eliminate these numbers. Because they don't apply to us any longer, because we've completed that height. And we can move on to the next height. But before we move on to the next height, we see that jumper H they came in at, what height was this? 1.40 meters, and they went out at 1.40 meters. So the way that we would mark that is we would put no mark. So we would write NM. So they would get no score in the competition, because you actually have to make a height in order to be considered in the scoring of the competition. So NM is no mark. So if they come and they don't make a single height, then that's what they would end up getting on their score sheet. So let's back out of this a little bit, a little too much. And let's see how many competitors we have remaining at 1.45 meters to see if we still need to conduct a 5 alive scenario at any point. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 competitors through 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Yes. So we still have 14 competitors remaining. So again, at 1.45 meters, we will conduct another 5 alive scenario. Let's say that we didn't have 14 competitors remaining. Let's say we only had 9 competitors remaining, right? Once again, if it's greater than 9, you do the 5 alive, but if it's 9 or less, then you can conduct a straight competition. So if we only had 9 competitors remaining at 1.45 meters, then we would just run them in order. If we had 10 competitors or 14, like in our example, then we would conduct 5 alive again. And so this happens potentially at every height, depending on how many competitors you have in the competition. So in this scenario here, yes, at 1.45, we would do another 5 alive setup. At 1.50, maybe we wouldn't, or maybe we would. Maybe we would do 5 alive all the way up to 1.60 meters. Finally, at 1.65, we have 9 or less competitors. So it just depends. But at least now you know how to conduct a 5 alive scenario. So just to recap that specifically, remember, number your boxes in the upper corner of the score sheet, of each person's score sheet, to keep track of the order of the athletes. Begin the numbering as soon as the first athlete in the competition misses at that particular height when you know that you have greater than 9 competitors competing. Begin your numbering at the first miss by that first athlete, whoever that might be. If it's the first athlete in the competition, or if it's the 7th athlete in the competition, begin your numbering at that point. Make sure that at the very end, you always label the very last 3 competitors 6, 7, and 8. 6, 7, and 8. So that way you know when you can eliminate the 5 alive and continue with just a straight scoring in your particular height that you're working with. It's also a good rule of thumb to put a little box like this at that 5th, technically, 5th marker, so that you know when you can eliminate it and when you're going to begin that 6, 7, 8 straight scoring. Some scenarios may show that the last 3 competitors are not the 6, 7, and 8. For example, let's say jumper N, let's say they got out. Let's say instead of making it on their first attempt, they actually missed it. And so they were out of the competition. So now in our example here at 1.45, we still have 13 competitors, right? Because we had these 2 that missed. So we're still going to be doing a 5 alive scenario. But here, our 6 would actually start at jumper L. Our 7 would be jumper M, and our 8 would be jumper O. So our box would be here at jumper K. It would not be here at jumper L because jumper N is out of the competition. So make sure you pay attention to how you number it and where you put your numbers in place. So, and the last thing to make sure to pay attention to is the numbers for your 5 alive will supersede your number order on your score sheet. So you'll always call them up, on deck, and on hold according to the numbers in your 5 alive. There's a lot there. The scoring is obviously very serious and very important for the competitors as a whole because it determines, the legitimacy of their marks as well as their place in the competition. So make sure that we take it very serious and that we pay very close attention to how to score and when a jumper is missing versus when a jumper is making, when a jumper is passing versus what height we're at. All of those things we want to make sure that we pay attention to because it's easy in the course of it all to get distracted. It's easy to get distracted. Sometimes jumpers will be checking out or they're going to another event or they got to use the bathroom or someone will come in to check in for the next flight of jumpers while you're conducting your event. So you really want to make sure as the scorekeeper, the one that's running the clipboard, effectively the head official and the one who is running the high jump competition as a whole, you want to make sure that you're really paying attention to the markings that you're making, the jumps of the jumpers, and the score in total. Thank you for joining.